Christopher begins not with a confession, but with the jewelry case on the tea table. Inside are the tiara, earrings, and the necklace tied to the kingdom's authority. Serafina recognizes them from Princess Education, but something feels wrong. After studying the gemstone, she realizes its color has shifted. It used to seem more yellow-green, but now it leans strongly blue. Christopher confirms she noticed exactly what he hoped she would. Christopher explains the stone's legendary status. In national myth, a spirit once granted treasures to 4 ancient kings, and this gemstone became the symbol of this kingdom's sovereignty. Serafina is skeptical about wish granting, treating it like a sacred relic whose political value matters more than its magic. Christopher, however, is not skeptical. He quietly says he believes the stone grants wishes because it once answered his. Then Christopher reveals the impossible truth. 20 years earlier, while mentally 25, he wished to begin again and not repeat his failures. The next thing he knew, he was an infant in his mother's arms, with his father alive and his mother healthy. Serafina's mind races. She recognizes a time rewind trope when she hears one, but Christopher's calm delivery makes the confession feel less like fantasy and more like a wound reopened. Christopher begins recounting his first life. Born the only direct male heir, he was indulged by servants while his busy parents saw only a lively child. No one corrected him when he broke things or demanded attention. By age 5, he had become a tiny tyrant, convinced the world existed to obey him. When his parents finally realized the danger, they began replacing the servants and trying to salvage their heir. The king gathered 5 exceptional children to influence him, heirs from powerful houses, Felicia Malone and Serafina Camden. In that timeline, Serafina was his age, not 7 years younger. The moment the young prince saw her graceful greeting, he became captivated. But because he understood possession better than affection, he decided she belonged to him. His first approach was rough, arrogant, and objectifying. Serafina's previous self responded with open disgust, and Christopher remembers it as the first time anyone treated him as unlikable. To current Christopher, retelling this is unbearable. He covers his face, mortified by his old behavior. Current Serafina sympathizes because it sounds like someone reading their worst childhood shame aloud. Still, she also understands why her other self looked at him like an insect. The 5 caretakers tried, but most gave up. 2 boys left after a year, tired of correcting etiquette and education that he rejected. Later, another departed too. The old Christopher felt triumphant whenever someone abandoned him, mistaking their patience for nagging and their withdrawal for defeat. Only later did he understand those were the very people who had cared enough to confront him. Felicia stayed mainly to protect Serafina, and Serafina adored her. The two eventually arranged to study abroad at a distant academy. When the spoiled prince heard Serafina would leave, rage overtook him. During a tantrum, he threw a hot teapot toward her. A maid shielded Serafina and was burned. The most horrifying part is that the old Christopher felt no guilt, only resentment that his target had been protected. 2 years later, Serafina returned from abroad changed, composed, and already beyond his reach. She reported that she had become engaged to a young commoner scholar from the academy country. To current Serafina, this makes uncomfortable sense. Her reincarnated values are not tied to noble blood, and an intelligent scholar sounds exactly like someone she might choose. For Christopher, that date was why he chose this day to confess everything. Christopher admits he expected Serafina to lose all affection for him after hearing the truth, so he thought the anniversary of losing her in the previous life was appropriate. His pessimism is painful, but his logic is clear. Last time, Serafina left his world here. This time, he is trying to choose honesty before fear and shame make him hide again. After Serafina vanished from his life, the old Christopher did not reflect. He concluded she was foolish for choosing a nobody over a prince with rank and wealth. Later, he was formally made crown prince because politics had trapped the royal family into using him. He became quieter, so people mistook the absence of tantrums for improvement. Inside, he remained empty, entitled, and dangerously easy to manipulate. On his 18th birthday, the Otome game event finally happened. Christopher slipped away from his monitored celebration and found a young woman lost in a restricted royal garden. In the game version, this was romantic destiny. From Christopher's memory, it was a security disaster. He did not even ask her name at first. He simply enjoyed feeling needed by someone too helpless to find the hall without him. Her name was Fiorina Staden, and she was not truly a count's daughter. The Staden family were fanatics obsessed with reclaiming the spirit stone. They had found a poor village girl with the right appearance, fabricated her lineage, and used her as a pawn. Fiorina herself was not malicious. She was a lonely, uneducated girl offered dresses, warmth, and a dream, while the adults around her sharpened that dream into a weapon. Christopher adds that the stone is said not only to grant wishes, but also to protect its owner. That is why he gave it to Serafina. If he could not fully trust his own strength, he wanted the national treasure to guard her in his place. Serafina answers that he already protects her, especially in social circles where he calmly shields her from jealousy and makes it unmistakable that he chose and cherishes her. In the previous life, Christopher married Fiorina when he was 19. She had gained no real noble education because Staden's people deliberately kept her ignorant. Tutors scolded her, but no one truly prepared her to become queen. Fiorina believed fairy tale princesses simply became happy after marrying princes. Christopher, just as empty, reinforced that illusion. Together, they entered the highest position in the nation without the substance to survive it. Meanwhile, the capable guardians who had been managing the crown prince's authority vanished from his view. Count Staden and his allies slid into those positions while opportunists filled lower offices. Christopher barely noticed because he was not truly governing. He only performed empty royal motions while others moved power around him. The Staden faction did not care about ruling well. They wanted the stone, revenge, and chaos enough to hide their theft. Fiorina's ignorance had one especially disastrous shape: money. In her village, people lived through self-sufficiency, taxes in grain, and barter with a sincere traveling merchant. She understood value through wheat, not currency. When she asked how much a high-value note was worth in wheat, Christopher gave a careless answer comparing it to a single sweet. Fiorina believed him, and from then on, enormous sums felt tiny in her mind. This was not greed in the usual villainous downfall sense. Fiorina was not cackling over luxury. She literally misunderstood cost. She bought dresses, jewels, rare sweets, and imported indulgences while thinking she was spending at a fraction of the true value. No one corrected her because no one in Staden's camp wanted a competent queen. The heroine of the fairy tale was being manufactured into a national scapegoat. Then the king suddenly fell ill and died within days, most likely poisoned, though the current timeline can no longer prove it. Loyal ministers struggled, but factions and greedy officials overwhelmed them. Taxes rose as the treasury emptied. Nobles in the capital flaunted wealth while commoners suffered. Riots erupted, estates fell, servants betrayed cruel masters, and the violence spread. Christopher describes the collapse with controlled horror, while Serafina recognizes how close this peaceful kingdom once came to revolution. Christopher and Fiorina were not at the center of power by then. They were isolated in a detached palace, mistaking confinement for a private paradise. When meals stopped arriving and servants disappeared, Christopher's first reaction was anger at neglected service, not fear for the country. Fiorina survived practically at first, eating preserved food from the pantry. But supplies dwindled, the palace stayed silent, and the previous life moved toward its final disaster.